Hi, this is Naroki5. I am going to be doing this until I die or I find something better to do. So please help me achieve this personal and, I think, noble objective by contributing to my Patreon or Subscribe Star. Link is down below. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Red Pill Nation Hangout. This is episode number 394. I just gotta let people know. I did probably one of the longest work days I've done in a few years tonight. So the lights are on, and there's people home, but there's not a lot of, especially not a lot of mental gas in the tank here. And V is flying out to California tomorrow, so he's limited on time. So yeah, this might actually be a short episode, depending upon how much energy both him and I have tonight. V, introduce yourself.
Yep, V, host of the Red Pill Hardcore Radio Show. Currently on hiatus, but just hit me up on tlbtalk.com. It's the new way to go. And let's hop in.
All right. So nope, nothing, no new site news. I am definitely up over. I am now at 101 on Odyssey, so that's 3 of my 6 channels that are up over 100. Ironically enough, the smallest one of the bunch is YouTube, and even though I'm not promoting it in any form or fashion, yeah, I've got 24 subs on there now. It's like I've seen like I'm adding one every second day, even on YouTube at this point. Apparently, I'm not big enough to have grab their attention yet. By the time I get big enough to grab their attention, it won't matter because, like I say, I'm going to figure out how to monetize on all of the other platforms that I've got. So, yeah. Screw YouTube won't have me by the balls. Something else that happened today, which will also be on 395. Canada is now starting to pull the same, and we will actually be getting into this with on the topics tonight. Canada Justin Trudeau is starting to pull the same tricks that the Canadian government there is pulling the same tricks that the British government is doing, and they're showing up at people's door, making threats and threatening to jail people over tweets. And we are going to be discussing that on 395 as well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Oh, and there's no acolyte either. I'm sure V, who he was sending subtle waves out about how much he liked Amanda Stenberg. So there's no accounting for taste, but yeah, I know your honey and her show.
No. I genuinely thought she did as being professional. Her acting, I think it was good. She portrayed being both characters, the good and evil side. Even when she changed costumes in the scenes, sorry, spoiler alert. And they're both in each other's, playing each other. You can still see that subtle difference in the acting. You knew the evil one that pertained to be good was still kind of fucked up. I think she did very well in the acting itself. Now, the writing and all that's a different debate. Everything else, that's a different debate.
Yeah. So we're giving you a taste of what's coming up on 395 because the Acolyte, surprise, surprise, didn't get renewed. The freak out over that is extra special. I'm going to just let it stew. I'm going to let that one stew in the juices until next Sunday, so that we can enjoy it. We can savor it. We can gloat openly about it. But in the meantime, for those of you who don't know, I am at Patreon as Naroki5. I am at BitChute, MGTOW TV, Odyssey, Rumble, Brighteon, and YouTube. YouTube is actually the smallest of the six. I am also at Facebook, Minds, Gab, MeWe, Getter, TLB Talks, and yeah, that's about it. That's about it for now. Yeah, I'm putting the time in here, so I'm gonna continue to impress. The topics for tonight, and this is big because some of these are downright dangerous. There's a lot of tech issues that are going to get discussed tonight. Topic number one: Apple caught engaging in anti-white racism at Young Entrepreneurs event. Two, and this one is really big: all social insurance information leaked for American citizens online. As I have found out, it's not just American citizens, it's Canadian citizens, it's Mexican citizens, it's a substantial amount of the Caribbean, and this information is up for sale on the dark web, or when we get to it. Topic number three: Supreme Court rules against Biden's Title IX initiative, which would have allowed trans men into women's spaces. Yeah, that's your government in action right there. Topic number four: Google and YouTube be broken up by the government, ? And Google again. Google cracks down on ad blockers again, this time in a really big way. And topic number six: what's happening in Great Britain, things destabilizing. And I will get into why I think they're destabilizing when we get to it. But without any further ado, since I want to get this done before I start falling asleep here at the keyboard, and V is under some limited time here, so we're just going to pop right into topic number one here. Okay, Apple. Apple's been doing a young entrepreneur. Believe Apple and a lot of tech companies have been doing young entrepreneur events for years, from a corporate and from basically a societal standpoint. The idea of promoting, there was something called Junior Achievement that I was involved in as a kid for 1 year. It was a business. You get a group of kids from high school, they would get together, and what they would do is they would break off into a couple different groups, and each of them would form a business, and that business would make something and sell it, and would try to be profitable in the first year. And we actually were profitable. As a matter of fact, I have some and the items that we were making were these big oak boxes. And I actually still have the box that I personally made sitting in storage right now. And it's got stuff in it, and it still is functional. It's still intact. Go figure. That's what it is. It was not race specific. Anybody was allowed to join. Anybody was allowed to promote. The most successful Junior Achievement projects were sent to a national contest and then an international contest, and it was pretty much open. Well, it was open to all communities and basically all races. Now, given that this was the 80s, I don't necessarily know who won every single year, but what I did notice when I was doing this, when I joined, is that when it came to the involvement in Junior Achievement, it was usually like the richer the kids from the rich kids from the richer schools and the kids from the suburbs and whatever that got involved in this. Like you didn't see junior achievement, for instance, at least in my neighborhood, you didn't see junior achievement startup chapters in East Vancouver, for instance. Like when I talk about East Vancouver here, I'm talking about Templeton, Britannia, Van Tack, Windermere, John Oliver, not McGee, Charles Tupper, you know, Winston Churchill, the school I went to, which was actually more technically a suburban part of Vancouver, which was Killarney. But I mean, most of the kids that were involved in this came from richer families or they were out in the suburbs, right? But I mean, they weren't race specific. Like winners of the event were not limited to people of a certain race. This particular event, and it wasn't just whites, as I found out later on, Asian kids were not allowed in either to participate in this either, was only allowed in for basically anybody but whites, and of course, Schrodinger's minority, the Asian segment of the population, which typically, and I mean, I'm just going to be straight up front here. When it comes to a young entrepreneurs event, they usually tend to dominate, and that is not directly because of racism. It's just generally because, I mean, the way the demographics are designed in North America, the kids from the poor neighborhoods, which in my case will be the Native Americans, in V's case would be the African Americans or the blacks, or the Indians and the blacks. I'm just going to start using the proper name for them. There were successful business people around, but I mean, yeah, concepts like, well, I mean, in both of the groups that I just mentioned, there's been a substantial breakdown in the family structure, which, by the way, they're now attempting to do with both the whites and the Asians as well. And you're starting to see the effects of what's happening there too. And given that this is Apple, given that Apple is, I don't, again, I kind of missed maybe Rearson. I should have asked Rearson to go take a look and get back to me on some research numbers for Apple, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Apple had substantial investment from BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard on its board. Also, and I mean, Steve Jobs has been kind of given a pass, but I mean, his behavior and some of the things he did with Apple, when he was running it the first time, actually caused him to get booted from the board. They eventually asked him back again. But I mean, yeah, anybody that's under the impression that Steve Jobs was a decent human being obviously doesn't know that much about Steve Jobs. But I mean, yeah, they clearly and blatantly, and it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't just whites, it was Asian kids as well. They clearly did not allow those particular groups to qualify, which again is a violation of, I can't remember the name of the specific amendment that it covers, but it's a violation of the law. And there was a situation which we actually covered a few months ago where a bunch of Asian kids sued Harvard because Harvard was being discriminatory in its admission policies, and they won. And what's going to eventually happen here is that, as I go along, for instance, I am noticing that, I'm seeing a lot more race-based hiring. And, you know, like from what I'm hearing and from what I'm seeing, you can bet you're starting to the whites are starting to notice. Now, I got a little bit of experience because I'm only half native. Actually, I'm even less than half native, but I mean, it's you know, um, Europe historically has been a very slow place to anger. But when they do get angry, especially when they get angry collectively, you really want to be ducking for cover. And you definitely don't want to be on the other side of it. And, they're starting to get, I can tell you right now, they're starting to get pissed off about stuff like this. They're not there yet. There are people like going, yeah, like, why are we putting up with this? Oh, yeah, that's right. KKK, bad police, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm not participating in any of that. So why am I being held responsible for it? Well, you have the same color skin they do. Well, that's BS because I keep hearing about blacks getting pissed off because, like, I mean, being compared to, say, some of the worst elements of their society just because they have black skin, but somehow it's okay for you to do it. It's like that's the conversation that's starting to occur. Uh so yeah, they're starting to notice. The other part on this is that given, and when I get to Great Britain, this will become a lot more obvious. And this is something that has been pointed out to me numerous times before, but I'm actually it's the only thing that logically makes sense here. They're also attempting to do divide and conquer. And you're seeing corporations like Apple sign on board with stuff like DEI and ESG and engaging in all of this race-based hiring at the behest of, say, BlackRock, for instance. And the design of these programs is specific to create racial hostility between the groups. And I hate to say it, but it's working. And, if you don't believe me, and V will absolutely back me up on this, go over to Gab, go over to BitChute, take a look at some of the comments, especially in the political videos. Like, yeah, like that segment of the population is getting more numerous and is getting louder by the day. And with it, I'm going to turn it over to V.
Yeah, well, I can definitely back you up on the Gab account. It was entirely surreal. Like, I know you're probably a fan, Naroki. Remember that Dave Chappelle episode, that sketch where he
Oh,
travels
yeah.
around the internet? You
Oh,
know, he
Clayton Bigsby. Yeah.
no no
Oh,
no
my
no no
God.
no. Well,
Not
well,
that one.
no, I'm talking about the one where Dave Chappelle walks into the internet. He finds free downloading porn, you know, just whatever's on the internet. What's missing from his segment is going to Gab and saying the clan members on Gab. That would have been hilarious. But
I don't know, man. The Chappelle Show did a lot of funny stuff.
yeah. Well, that was one of my favorite episodes. But yeah, I don't know. We're seeing a shift. Obviously, we're seeing a shift. We are. I'm sorry for any noises here. I'm doing a little packing, but we're seeing a shift now. You have people, and I'm probably, I guess I'll be Lucius left foot on this one. Uh, there are so many people out there that say they've been victimized because of such and such, whatever. So when you have discrimination and there's nobody there that's looking at it, nobody's there looking at it because, well, the people who run the establishment. So it's all about governance. It's being there's hyper game, so much hyper game going on. The government is interested in regulating every and any aspect of your life, whether you think it is good or it's bad. They don't see in those terms of good and bad. It's, do we have control or do we not have control? So I think they're putting a level of sort of society policing itself so that it can weed out, nepotism. You can weed out, the people with all the money having all the influence, just them getting out of trouble and buying people off, or just being held in such prestige because of a family name or something. It might be some equalizing the playing field, but the thing about that is you're going to have people that are going to get hurt. There are a lot of people are going to be lost in this process. You got radicals on both sides, and unfortunately, we're people, so we tend to go to war. So it's I don't know. I guess whoever at the end of the day is the new top establishment. So somebody's doing a lot of social engineering. It's way more complicated than how most people view it right now. But that's just one angle at it. We can definitely expound upon this at another time. But that's all I got for the moment.
Okay. This next one is wow. I mean, at first I thought it was all U.S. citizens, and then it was like, oh, Canadian citizens are involved too, and the information is being sold on the dark web for a fairly substantial price. Someone is going to pay up, and you're going to see a spat of spamming and robocalls and that sort of thing, the likes of which we have never seen before. So yeah, I'm going to seriously have to consider investing into some internet security, in particular in regards to my phone number, because I mean, I routinely get 3 or 4 phone calls like a day on my phone that are just either robocalls or just people attempting to sell me something. Now, what happened here is all social insurance information for all American citizens that have registered social insurance numbers and tax records, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of this information was released online. Now, at first I thought it was just the United States, but then it turned out it's the United States, it's Canada, it's Mexico, it's a big chunk of North America. And honestly, I can't really say that I'm all that surprised that they were able to get at this information. First of all, if you've ever been to a government building and you've seen the computers that they're using, I'm often wondering whether they're just buying these up used and repurposing them, because their websites are usually out of date. The technology, especially in the government offices, is really old and clunky and slow.
So it wouldn't, and also we're talking, I mean, in most cases, in a lot of cases, most government employees don't give a shit. They're just there for a paycheck. And it shows in the type of work that they do, right? So it's not a surprise that the internet security was a little bit lax. The person that does eventually, and I'm going to have to imagine it's probably going to be several different buyers of this information that get it, are virtually guaranteed to make a profit of some kind, right? Because it wasn't just social insurance numbers, it was phone numbers, it was credit records, I believe it was tax records, uh, addresses, you know, the right person, especially on the dark web, could just simply post up this information on the dark web, and it's like find somebody online, look on the dark web, pay a certain fee, and you'll get any kind of information you want on any person anywhere. Like it's already pretty easy to get access to information about even myself, or say, like, I don't even know what V's first name is, to be honest with you. I mean, I think V knows my first name. I don't know I know what V looks like physically, but I don't know his first name. Uh, my view is that, I mean, I don't do much to try to hide my initial name, because my actual name will cause confusion, because there's a city with the exact same name as me. So if you attempt to like look it up on Google and you look up my name, you'll get a whole raft of information about a city in central Russia, or well, actually, no, it's central Kazakhstan now, and makes it, so yeah, I got a little additional, like, finding out who I am though is not particularly difficult, right? Finding out where I work, who my employer is, and what I do as a job, that's a little bit different. That part I am really zealous about. I've given Rearson inadvertently dropped the name of my employer, an old employer, like a one from 2019, one from 5 years ago, at one point online. I had to kind of have a little conversation with him the day after the show, and specifically tell him not to do that, even if he was drunk at the time, which he was. But yeah, if you've paid taxes, if you have a social insurance number, if you've had to register anything with the government in regards to vital statistics, that information is now for sale. And you know, I'm surprised that this hasn't. Well, actually, maybe I'm not, because it's the mainstream media. The mainstream media has been giving very little coverage to this, which isn't a surprise, considering that it's an election year. There's also a little situation going on with Act Blue, but I won't, over on, not Project Veritas, on O'Keefe Media Group, that isn't being given a lot of coverage right now either. But yeah, like, this is actually serious, right? Like, someone with the wrong intent and enough net savvy could take this information and find out where someone lives, what they do for work. Basically, it gives the SJWs and it gives the wokesters a serious potential veto power over their opposition. And with it, I'm going to turn it back over to V.
Yeah, well, you gotta know my position on this. This is a psyop. Okay. Uh, cyber terrorism, man, it's just the next wave. They told us it was coming, and if the government's telling you it's coming, I'm pretty sure they not just know something about it. I think they have something to do with it as well. Uh, their role, especially these quote unquote intelligence agencies, uh, they got to come up with the false flag operations to make themselves more important. So the NSA has been a pain in everybody's butts. So just for something like this to happen, this is like one of those things. Shots fired, right? Oh, well, now they're going to need us to protect their information. Because, they didn't already have your information, AT&T. I mean, they're not the only ones. All electronic transmissions are picked up. Every emissions, every RF, it's all picked up. Even biosensing technology is more and more rolled out on us, right? So I actually had to get another service plan while I am where I am, and just to get the better deal, I got a certain kind of phone and unlimited data because I'm gonna be traveling. So it's like I would walk by my phone and it would just lights up. It's like, I've got the cameras covered with stickers. So yeah, they're and cheap device. The phone was $39. I mean, the SD memory card, a micro SD memory card for 64 gigs is $20. So you're selling a whole phone for that dirt cheap, and it seems to react to everything I'm doing. So it's like, yeah. So the biosensing technology is rolled out. All of your information is going to be tracked and relayed because some people are going to get screwed with. Other people will be quote unquote saved. Tighter control, tighter regulations, restrictions, laws, etc. This is how it's always been since the beginning of civilization, really. This is how it is. This is what our human progression looks like. It's just, I'm blown away that people are just gonna accept any explanation, though, as to why something's happening. No, politics is just there to paint the canvas a different picture. The canvas has never changed. People have to wake up, understand these patterns, and start diverting. I think we're seeing that a lot in society. I can't begin to tell you what each path means because everybody has their own path. So I don't know. that's just, we gotta get serious or get adaptive somehow. That's all I got on that one.
Yeah, I'm not particularly surprised. Yeah, that op idea is not actually that far off. It's an interesting concept, and it is definitely one that
that the deep state would absolutely use to keep people off balance. And keep in mind that they're losing this fight. Yeah, they've got a firm hold of Britain and France, and they've got a somewhat solid footing in Western Europe. But, you know, the polls right now in the U.S. with the elections show that it's like the last time I checked, race to 270, Kamala was just barely ahead. Now, you need to understand something. Like Clinton and Biden were both slated to be like 5+ points ahead of Trump. Uh yeah, if it's like literally a dead heat right now in the presidential race, that probably translates out to Trump is like way out front and they're not going to be able to pull it out. And they have to start which is why I'm going to talk about Britain tonight. They have to start doing stuff to destabilize the North America in a serious way, which explains, like I talked about before the show, some of the stuff that Trudeau is starting to pull is similar to some of the stuff that the British government is starting to pull. And the fact of the matter is that they're doing this right about the same time. Probably not a coincidence. But that being said, let's move on to the next topic. Now, the next topic, and I am absolutely, well, no, I'm not. Given how the Biden administration was acting, I am not. But I had no idea. Like, I did not know about the fact that the Biden administration had reworded the Title IX initiative. Now, what Title IX initiative was when it first came out, which was in the late 60s, early 70s, was to give women equal access to athletic opportunities and facilities at universities, which made sense at the time. This initiative would have allowed trans women free access to women's spaces at universities. Period. End of story. They tried it. I don't know necessarily whether it passed in the House or not. It probably passed in the House. I'm having to imagine it had a bit of a rough ride, but it may have gotten through the Senate. But I mean, if it got through the House, it got through the House before the House went back to being Republican controlled. But apparently this must have been done either in 2021 or in 2022 before the House and the Senate reworked themselves. And the fact that it took almost 2 or 3 years for it to, like, what to more or less happen here is that there had to have been a series of legal challenges which the Biden administration kept appealing, and it eventually made its way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled 5-4 against the initiative. Now, I'm kind of shocked that it was that close. But given the fact that there's at least one of the Supreme Court justices, I think Sotomayor, who was completely compromised, I'm not surprised. Though the legal interpretation of the law is maybe what sold that guy sitting there, one of the two sitting in the middle of the Supreme Court right now, the two deciding votes. But the culture and the concept of doing this is clearly, and I mean, I'm speaking as a guy in the manosphere. I'm speaking as a guy in the manosphere who recently got accused by J.K. Rowling and Riley Gaines of supporting a transgender boxer at the Olympics, even though I can absolutely guarantee you that there was no men's rights activist that was even going anywhere near that, or even was willing to discuss it. But they tried to blame it on us. And my personal response to this is, okay, if you want to start blaming us for what transgenders do, then you know what? Good luck winning that fight on your, because you're winning that fight on your own. You're not getting a lick of help from us, because then you're blaming us for something that we didn't do. And fortunately for, I guess, women everywhere, the Supreme Court ruled against this. The really, really frightening part about this is, though, is that a substantial number of major feminist organizations in the United States were supportive of this Title IX initiative brought forward by the Biden administration, which tells me how corrupt feminist groups have actually become. And it's probably, to a lot of them, it's probably ceased being about women's rights and just being like what's happened with the Anti-Defamation League, with the SPLC, with the SPLC, with the Southern Poverty Law Center. What is the name of that other one? Not the ADL, the ACLU. You know, it's not about equal rights. It's not about supporting the underclass or the influence. It's strictly about the money, and in this particular case with the SPLC, about the money laundering. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to V.
Yeah, so that's like a lot of work. Why not just have trans public restrooms? You know, just that non-committal space in the middle. Actually, it's just a everybody bathroom, just right in between the men and women. You have everybody else in the middle. I mean, why not? A lot of places, bathrooms are just whoever walks in. I know those are, I mean, single bathrooms, but ones with the multiple stalls and heads, well, you just have something in the middle. No need to die on a hill of political wokeness, right? I mean, there are establishments that, you know, they'll have flyers, for example, say LGBTQ, you know, plus whatever, friendly. It's like, you know, that really would be necessary if we didn't have, you know, we've got a constitution, right? Everybody has certain rights, and as far as pushing constitutional rights, you can't have someone. I mean, there's the executive orders. I understand that, but just to have that process of not doing it the right way. What I'm trying to say is, you know, they have become so inflated, this extreme left, that everything's offensive, and there's a temper tantrum with everything. But we have a legal system, and you know, you have the freedom to make your own mediums, your own communities. But to force what you're doing on society as a whole, I mean, you've got, we as humanity, we've got some problems already. I mean, racism still is a thing, you know? Uh, yeah, I mean, sexism is it's not necessarily a good thing. However, I mean, we share rights, man. That's the whole point. We share equal rights. So why does it have to be put into my face and to maybe my children's face? You know, some 8-inch, possibly 9-inch phallus into her face and just being completely ruined for the rest of her life. I mean, nobody knows the psychology behind this. I mean, we've already had issues with the Catholic Church, right? Some other institutions too, governmental, CIA, you know. Uh, you don't want to unearth this, but it's institutional to have that trauma, which creates a suggestible mind. Okay, it's MK Ultra, like seriously, with everything that they put onto us, social experiments after social experiments. So I don't know. There's so much esoteric stuff behind it, cultism. There's so much of this. It's in the programming, right? It's even in Disney, right? So, but you know, we do have a legal system. I would circle back to that, and these things should be put before the people at an official level, and it should be the people that make the majority of the ruling. You know, uh, are we being represented in the way that we're supposed to be represented? I don't know. I don't know who's got their hand in the cookie jar either. So, but back to basics. That's why we always have basics. You have your space, I have my space. And that's anatomical for that reason. I guess I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. Yeah, I just like wow. And here's the thing, even though they know that they're not the majority, they spent the money and appealed and fought this all the way to the Supreme Court. Even though they knew they didn't, like what you're saying, they knew they didn't have proper support, and the support of the majority of people, they tried to force this thing through anyway, and they came disturbingly close to making it real. And based upon some of the stuff that I've seen this week, and again, we get to topic 6, you'll you'll see even more of it. Yeah, this is not a good thing, and we're making good time tonight here, probably because I'm anxious to get this show done, and V's probably anxious to get to bed as well. So with that in mind, let's move on to topic number 4. And this one, I think if we're going to go for a while, well, actually, I think topic number 6 will probably also be going for a while, but this one we might actually go for an extended period of time. Now, what the hell's that guy's name? Jim, the congressman from Ohio. Not Jim Tucker.
can't remember who
You
it
got me,
is.
man.
Yeah, my brain is just like blah. But I mean, he's a well-known conservative. He's a well-known Republican, and it's I can't remember. I know his first name is Jim. Hold on a second here. But I mean, what he had done a hearing, and he brought in multiple corporations and had them testify about something called GARM. Now, what turned out was going on is that from was that they were getting their orders from this place called GARM, and he he basically, oh god, okay, what is the name of this guy? Oh, he basically said, okay, you know what, I want you to release some records, and I want you to release these records immediately. Jim Jordan, that's his name, Jim Jordan. And he said, I want you to release these records, and if you don't do it, you'll be in contempt of Congress. And they released the records, and it confirmed everything that both Elon Musk and the CEO of Rumble had suspected. And they immediately took GARM to court. And again, that's the thing about a lot of these shadow organizations. The moment they have direct sunlight on them, they usually disintegrate, and that's exactly what happened with GARM. Now, GARM was just part of the problem. Google and YouTube, aka the corporation that Susan Wojcicki ran, and I mean, it's like even after we talked about Susan Wojcicki last week on the last show, like I've become more aware of even more stuff that she has done. But YouTube and Google still control. YouTube is 85% of the video views, although that number is, for instance, Rumble does have 2 or 3 accounts that are over 1 million subs now, right? Although they're barely 10% of the size of YouTube at this point. YouTube still comprises like 85% of all the channel content out there. That is probably going to change in a few years' time, but YouTube also has a search engine, and of course that search engine is blatantly biased. They got caught just a few months ago that you could not, for instance, it wouldn't auto spell Jordan Peterson or Michaela Peterson. It wouldn't auto spell Meg Tao. It would not, before Stefan Molyneux got kicked off, it would not auto spell Stefan Molyneux either. Yeah, you had to actually know how to spell his name. And Stefan Molyneux's last name is a very difficult last name to spell. The Google, on the other hand, and I'm speaking from direct personal experience here. For instance, you want to debunk the wage gap. Going over to Google to debunk the wage gap in regards to one of the biggest frauds of the feminist movement is the wage gap, by the way. You want to go over and defraud the wage gap, and you do web search on Google, you have to go 2 or 3 pages in before you actually find an article that actually debunks it. Now, if you go over to DuckDuckGo or Brave or Bing, or some of the other ones, that will not be the case. Another example of this, and this has come up, one of the more egregious examples was the Republican debate online. Okay, it was obvious that Trump was going to win. Trump wasn't there, but the other Republican candidates were at this debate. The Republicans basically told YouTube to go pound sand. If you had just typed in Republican candidate debate into Google, you would not have been given any Rumble feeds. You had to spell out specifically where it is. So what is going on here is that, I mean, Google is 90% of the search engine activity. YouTube is 85% of the video views. Jim Jordan has made a motion inside government, and this has been something that's been floating out there for a few years. But now, given how badly, especially during the pandemic, how badly Google acted, the there's open discussion now, at least on the Republican side, about doing the same thing to Google that they did to AT&T back in the 70s, which is basically breaking up Google into smaller companies. Now, the fact that it's gotten to the point where it's actually starting to be seriously discussed in DC, ironically enough, kind of leaves me scratching my head over topic number 5. But yeah, now, given long enough, I mean, I do think that alternative alt search engines like Brave, like AVG, like not that, like Bing, like alt search engines are going to eventually overtake Google. Google's star has been falling. It's been falling for a few years now, but it's been a slow fade, not a fast cut. But this is what I think is going to amount to a fast cut. Now, YouTube, on the other hand, is in much serious trouble. Oh, and also Google. And I've talked about this particular video by Raging Golden Eagle for years, and I'm actually going to have to find it, and I'm going to have to share it. Google, for many, many years, because I remember at one point, I think it was in 2018, they took a $60 billion hit, which is almost as big as the $100 and some odd billion hit they took a few months back. But they took a $60 billion hit and they just kept going. Right? And what Raging Golden Eagle was talking about here is, it's the look how big we are. We're too big to fail. We're just going to keep going. So they'll lose $1 million here, $1 billion there, a couple $100 million here, and they just keep losing money because they're just so big. And then all of a sudden, they make a major mistake, just like what Disney made, and all of a sudden, they're finding themselves in a situation where they're not turning over the money that they used to turn over, and they've got competition that they can't deal with. They've got an unpopular public. The general public is a very unpopular opinion of your product, and you have a whole bunch of things arrayed against you. And suddenly the look how big we are doesn't mean much, because, well, along with look how big we are, you also end up getting the big expenses that come with look how big we are. State of California is another example of that. If you look at the straight up numbers involving California and its economy right now, it would appear to be doing okay. You start peeling below the surface and you start looking around, suddenly California doesn't look all that healthy anymore. So Google is running out of money. And because it's running out of money, it's having to put pressure on the companies that it bought, like YouTube. Now, YouTube, and this to quote Louis Rossman here, because Louis Rossman, when he came up with the GreyJ app, he figured out pretty quickly what was going on with YouTube, which is, by the way, why we're going to get into the ad blockers thing on for the next topic. YouTube, to quote Louis Rossman, is acting like a company that's going through its couches looking for spare change. Why are they going through the couches looking for spare change? Because Google does not have a bottomless pit of money to throw at YouTube to prop it up anymore. And YouTube, thanks to Susan Wojcicki, has done a beautiful job of shooting itself in the foot and hamstringing itself and turning its back on its original creators, and has now put itself in a situation where there's competition that's not going to go away, and it's only going to get bigger. And YouTube does not have the endless supply of money that it used to have to just basically swat these people away. Like, Rumble's not going to go away. Odyssey is not going to go away. BitChute, well, maybe BitChute might collapse eventually, because I do not know, for the love of God, why the guy who runs BitChute continues to have his business in Great Britain, but he does. But Brighteon's not going to go away. MGTOW TV is not going to go away either. Neither will Kick. And there's going to be a D Live, which I don't have. But I mean, yeah, like, you're seeing all of these smaller, more nimble companies that are able to attract the type of edgy content creator and edgy talent to them that doesn't exist on YouTube. And YouTube just continues to censor more and more and more and more and more. Like, I didn't get into, actually I have gotten into, but I mean, I'm gonna mention it again. YouTube has introduced a community notes function similar to the one brought up on Twitter. And we all know who's going to jump on board with that one, right? And it's going to demonetize the edgier content even further than it's already demonetized, which is why I have moved primarily off of YouTube, right? That's going to take me longer to get to the point where I'm financially independent, but I had to move away from YouTube. YouTube is either going to collapse and die, or is going to have to radically change its business structure. And that's really all there is to it. Now, when I get into the Google YouTube connection, I will get more into that with topic number 5. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to V again.
Yeah, don't have much on this one, but listen, I don't know. I think that hit, the losing that 60 billion and losing, so much more money after that. Every time they take a hit, yeah, you see some major policy changes, and it's having to kneel to other people's demands because they hook into you, right? As you're going down, but you got to stay up, and you got to change policies. So I don't know what influences actually infiltrated, gaining influence and the company and inner workings, but I can imagine who these type of people may be. Again, it's all social engineering, of course. And yes, I've seen, I mean, lately, and I think it's funny. I've actually been paying closer attention to YouTube because of the ads. The ads are getting wild now because there's hardly any filtering process. You can pay money to YouTube. You know, you can pay them $2,000, right? And then they'll play your ad so many times per second, you know, for several hours, or whatever the the, the terms are. But it's ridiculous. I've seen what I think are scams. The government is giving out money. If you don't have this, then you can call us and qualify. Just click this ad, and it's somebody digging for your personal information. And I I wanted to do a little investigating, and I did, and I think I stumbled onto it being a scam. And it's not just one. There's like several of these. Like the number didn't work the next day. When you went to the website, which I bookmarked, the website no longer goes up. So it's like, how many people gave out their personal information? Holy crap. Could that have been some AI orchestrated cyber attack? I mean, anything could be going on right now, and they're just not telling us. So I'm getting off the tutorial here, but it's no worse than what you see in the movies. Art imitates life, and life imitates art. So this is the reality of things that we're going to have to be considering. So there could be some very malicious players totally polluting the entire business. And it just may be something out of our hands at some point. We need to get control of it for sure. So whatever that takes, there may have to be some governmental intervention, perhaps. I don't know the details of I mean, it's too much to actually consider. The tech world has its own set of crazy laws from the corporate world, so you never know what's going to happen. Anyways, back to you, Naroki.
Oh, wow, that was quick. Okay, so the second part on this, and this is tied directly into YouTube, which is why I threw this in. Google has finally directly intervened because YouTube just could not make ad blockers disappear. And they have devoted a significant amount of resources into forcing its viewers to watch ads. Like significant amount of effort into forcing its viewers to watch ads. And what they did stuff, and this is what they were doing. For instance, you could watch YouTube videos without the ads on, say, Brave and Bang, which, by the way, you still can. You used to be able to do it without having, or even AVG, without having to worry about the ads. Now you have to basically turn off your account. And if you want to watch something, for instance, what I'm having to do now is I'm having to copy, paste, and save the video that I want to watch. And then I have to go over to a search engine where my account is turned off to watch and listen to that video, because I don't want to watch the ads. And it wouldn't have been quite so bad with the ads, But what they did with the ads is that not only did they start forcing you to watch more ads, but they started making more of them. And also the way the ads are designed too, right? If, for instance, you just put your phone in your pocket and walk down the street and you're not paying attention, what you'll get is a long ad, or you will get multiple ads before you're able to bypass. If you actually have your phone in your hand and you're watching it, the ads will be shorter. But there are still way more ads than there were before this, and they're determined to force you to watch them. And yeah, like you get some of like Jeremy Hambling is like saying, yeah, I don't like the ads either, but they pay my bills. I'm not going to slam them too much. Yeah, I get it, right? Like, it's like it's how YouTube pays its creators. The only problem is that, well, I mean, for instance, Rumble has ads, BitChute has ads, and I don't mind watching those ads on those two places. The difference is that neither of those two particular platforms have engaged in wanton censorship, have not engaged in biased media manipulation, have not lied to people, have not turned their back on their original creators. So I don't mind watching the ads on Rumble or BitChute. But because of everything else that YouTube has done, I can't, I'm like, I mean, I'm at the point now, which by the way is one of the reasons why why my channels are growing incrementally, is that I if I can avoid watching something that I like on YouTube, I will not watch it on YouTube. What I will do is I will copy, paste, save, download it, and then upload it onto another platform and watch it there. Because fuck YouTube. That's why. Right? They've deleted two of my accounts. They never bothered to communicate with me exactly what it was I was talking about. And by the way, my content is not exceeding, like, it's edgy, but it's not like I'm not talking, I don't engage in race baiting. I don't generally I've accused people of lying, but I mean, I'm not just saying it just to be hyperbolic or saying stuff just to get views to my channel. Like, I try to keep things as straightforward as humanly possible. And I've had two channels deleted anyway, and it is very easy for someone with an agenda to get a YouTube channel shut down, especially if they're on the left. And you know what? YouTube did this to themselves, right? Like, for instance, and like there's certain situations, like for instance, the Olympic episode that we did for 392, right? Like, I'm going to edit it. I'm going to post it up. And oh, by the way, yeah, I will get around to writing those content for that one. Maybe not tonight because I've had 13 and a half hours sleep, and then we're doing this. So I'm like dead tired. But yeah, I have pretty much had it with how Google and YouTube conduct themselves, right? And of their political bias. And like, I mean, like in 2017, Google having that comfort session with its employees because Donald Trump got elected, and all of them, quote unquote, saying the right thing, right? So they've they've taken that extra step now to make it even more difficult for you to get around ad blockers. Again, right? I don't mind the ads. I watch the ads on Rumble and BitChute all the time, right? But it's the other stuff that Google has done and that YouTube has done, which has seriously turned me off from wanting to participate or help Google and YouTube in any way. I mean, like, if I figure out how to download the Grey J app and use it, I'm going to be using it. And I will enjoy using it because I want to see YouTube collapse under its own hubris and under its own weight. And that's exactly what it's going to do at some point. How long does YouTube have? A couple of years? I mean, it's control of the video viewing market is 85. As I said, when Jeremy Hambling talked about this particular topic on his video about this, oh, well, they're 85% of the market, therefore I have to keep doing on YouTube, and everybody else has to keep doing it too, because that's where the money is. And it's like, yeah, that's where the money is now. That's not where the money is going to be in a couple of years' time. Now, is YouTube going to be a fast fade, or is it just going to go over a cliff? I don't know. Google definitely looks like it's going to go over a cliff at some point. But, again, they did this to themselves. And I have no sympathy for any of them, and I cannot wait for the end to come to these corporations, just like I can't wait for this globalist agenda to go down in flames, which it eventually is going to do. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to V.
Yeah, well, the ads. How crazy the ads are getting. Like, just I like how these topics just tied in together. Yeah, anybody can buy a YouTube ad. Anybody. So, that's why they have the little button, if an ad is, you can report an ad and see if it's scam or not, well, not see if, but you can report it as a scam if you have found that it is. So, oh man, YouTube. I mean, I used to use ad blockers. I didn't normally use ad blockers. And again, yes, content creators need to get paid and everything, but I'm the kind of person. I got virtual credit cards or virtual debit cards, cloned accounts. Just if I absolutely must do something or pay for something online, it's like I hardly put out any of my personal information because I have so much other public information. I do shows, I do video appearances. My show, other people's shows. So I've got a public appearance. So it's very important for me to keep as much of my private and legal information private, as really anyone should. So my personal information is just not for something that people should have access to. Point being. And it's, I don't know. All the data mining, the ads, the AI, everything is just sort of circling itself. And we're going to have to see what the heck is going on. Sorry, I think I have a just semi driving by or something. That's kind of weird. Okay, but no, it's but I don't have time to research these ads as wild as they are, especially the campaign ads. Wild, wild, wild. I can't express that enough. I'm seeing some like crazy, and for those, and they're really taking money from people because some of these ads are full on shows, full on, like 34-minute shows about this and that. And it's funny because if I'm asleep, I'm trying to go to sleep, I've got YouTube running, it's background noise. I wake up to that all the time. You trying to say something, Naroki? You hear a...
No, not saying anything.
Okay. Your screen kept flashing. So yeah, they're gonna be hoarded out. They're gonna become a very lesson and much cheaper version of their original selves. You know, the point of YouTube was to get away from television. That was like the revolutionary idea of video on demand. You have to wait for commercials. You didn't have. I mean, those were the golden days of the internet. But you know, that's where we're at right now. You know, you could type in, you know, seafood. Instead of your search engine coming up with a definition of what seafood is, you get tons of seafood ads, you know, so you can buy it. You know? So that bloat, all the stuff, it's fractal in nature. It's going to pepper in more and more and more. It's no longer going to be in the back of our minds. It's going to be everything that we have to deal with. So people need to understand where we're going. With that, I think we can get on to the next topic. Yeah.
Why am I
Unless
muted?
you...
Oh yeah. No, why? I was don't know what's going on. My microphone just suddenly like muted all on its own. I don't know what the hell happened there. Okay, last topic of the night. As we all know, the Labour Party won an absolutely staggering majority in the House of Commons in Britain, and this was not that long ago. It was less than a month ago. And we were all looking at it because this is around the same time as the French election. And everybody was like, oh, yeah, we all know the way France is going. Well, actually, France has been kind of sedate, at least so far. Although it should be curious to point out that the authorities in France are attempting to do the same thing with Jean-Marie Le Pen that the United States has been doing with Donald Trump. What happened, though, is that Britain just boiled over, and it started out with something, again, right? This is how it's going to start out in a lot of countries in the West. It started out with something really innocuous. There was a kid born to immigrant refugees from Rwanda, and he had a mental issue, but he went into a girls' school, or he went into this girls' event, and he stabbed and killed 3 girls, and he injured about 6 or 7 more before I think he was either arrested or killed. The press in Great Britain did everything they could to downplay this. And what you have here in Britain is a clear case of, the issue that they've been having in Britain for a few years now, which is immigrants and direct descendants of immigrants going out and doing harm on the native population. And it started out in this town, and it like spread like wildfire all the way through Britain. And you had police going out and arresting people. You had the courts. Oh, you have the courts open 24/7, and they were arresting internet posters, which is something you'll be talking about what they're attempting to start to try and do in Canada. And what you ended up getting is two-tier policing, and the British Prime Minister, like, literally saying something that contradicted what he had said earlier about the issue. And you're looking at that, and I mean, I've seen other issues around it. And then, of course, the Muslims started protesting, and nothing was happening to them. But if anybody stood up to them, they were being arrested. Does that sound like what was happening to the Proud Boys here back in the early 20s? And it's very clear and obvious two-tier policing. And what has been going on is that this time the British government has gone so far as to, hold on a second, is that they've resorted to threatening, because what they tried to do with Tommy Robinson a couple of years ago was, when they arrested him, they put the screws to the local internet podcasters and so on and so forth. If they mentioned something like this, they would get arrested. What the British government couldn't do was they could not control what was going on outside of Britain. And because of the way YouTube was structured, and keep in mind, Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute, we were a lot smaller a couple of years ago. But even with the censorship that was taking place and the threats that were being made to the native population about reporting this, it got out and it got reported, and the British government got massive egg on their face. So what they've gone and done is that they've stepped it up, and now they're trying to threaten podcasters and YouTubers and so on and so forth in the United States and Canada and Australia and other parts of the world, and they're threatening them with extradition. And they ran an experiment with Tommy Robinson. That's what it looked like to me. It looked like they ran an experiment with Tommy Robinson about a month ago when he came to Canada to do some speaking tours. Now, again, I'm not a huge fan of Tommy Robinson, but I don't really have anything against him either. But at the time, I couldn't figure out what was going on. Then I started seeing, and this is something that we'll be talking about with the DNC next week. The protesters, not only were they getting two-tier policing, but they seem to be the Muslim protesters, the immigrant protesters, they seem to be well funded. Like, you're seeing cases of the same bunches of people, for instance, being shipped from place to place to place to place to place, and they're the same people. And they're noticing this in the United States as well. And I'm like, look, and of course, it's a Labour government in Britain right now, so the British government isn't lifting a finger to stop or prevent any of this. In fact, they're actually turning on their own. By the way, this is the functioning equivalent of what happened with the Acolyte and the Star Wars, like Lucasfilm turning on its fans. This is the same sort of thing. They turned on their own. The government turned on its own native population, and it, instead of calming things down, it's just gone and made things worse. And I'm like looking at all this, and I'm like going, well, why the hell would they be doing that? And then, of course, I took another step back and I took a look, and I'm in the realm of speculation here, but it seems to be the one thing that makes sense. The Labour Party was always opposed to Brexit. They fought it tooth and nail all the way. They actually tried to pin, they actually even wanted another referendum on Brexit. What ended up happening is that, of course, not Nigel, Boris Johnson became prime minister, and because Theresa May kept dragging her heels on this, Boris Johnson came in and just rammed it through. Curiously enough, just around the Ukrainian war situation, he got ousted. And the new conservative government ended up looking very much like the one that was under Theresa May. So the Conservative Party has been compromised. The Labour Party has always been compromised. And the Social Democrats are even further to the left than the Labour Party. So there really isn't. And yeah, there is a Canadian version of the PPC in Britain, but it does not have enough popular electoral support yet. But if you're looking at everything and you're looking at the way it's going and you're looking at the fact that the prime minister is, and the current government in Britain doing everything they can to antagonize their own citizens into hitting back and to anger them, and to have BBC and all the major media networks continuously take hits to their credibility and outright lie about what happened. The only thing, like the only people that benefit that I can see from this are the Brexiters. The aim on this appears to be to create so much instability in Britain that Britain petitions to rejoin the EU, which they will happily and joyfully allow them to do so. And they will do it without a referendum. Because they know if they go to a referendum, they're going to probably get their asses handed to them. So you've got two-tier, and you still got the two-tier policing as well, which I think is you're going to start seeing in Canada over the next 12 to 16 months as we get closer and closer and closer to the Canadian election. But yeah, the whole thing in Britain looks like, and it's being there's I see a YouTube post about this posted up at Redacted suggesting that George Soros was indeed behind it, and it wouldn't surprise me if he was. And the other part is, and I'm going to have to think that somebody is going to either eventually talk or somebody is going to do enough detective work that they're actually going to be able to break in and find out what's going on. That, they're going to start finding out who it is, because the same sort of thing happened at the DNC this week. These protesters who look like they were professional muckrakers. These same protesters have shown up after event after event after event after event after event, which suggests to me that they're professional. And they probably are. So here's the next question. Who the fuck is paying these people? Because you're deliberately interfering with the functioning of another state when you engage in something like this. This is an active form of war. Let me emphasize that again. This is an active form of war. There's actually very little difference between the British government telling its own citizens that they're bigots and racists and Islamophobes and whatever because they don't want these people touching their kids, and the people over in the United States calling the people who want the perverts not handling the kids, calling them homophobes and bigots and racists and so on and so forth. I don't see any difference there. I don't. They're using the same language, and they got the mainstream media backing them up. And again, right, the mainstream media happily and willfully goes along with it, even though every time they do this, their credibility takes yet another hit. And I don't know where the end comes. I suspect it's going to come rather soon. And it's not going to matter whether they throw Trump in jail or whether they kill him, because at this point, too many of the other lines have been woken up. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to V, who will take us out in a surprisingly short show tonight.
Yeah, well, you said pretty much everything I wanted to say on it. Well, what I could add to that, I know there's old but still ongoing territory disputes because of colonization and why, they can't have a bridge between what was it, Portugal and Spain and Morocco, right? The Straits of Gibraltar. It's only like an 8-mile gap there between both continents. It's amazing. It's one of the world's most used shipping routes, right? So you've got French territories and Moroccan territories and British UK territories, all just sort of still meshed within each other's countries over there. And it's crazy. The UK sort of a protectorate sort of city in Spain, when they actually voted 95% to stay within the Brexit. I mean, to stay, within. Yeah, but they were mad about Brexit. It's like so many people that you represent can't give you the consideration that you need. I mean, this place still operates like it's within Spain, but official government, operations belongs to the UK. Sort of like, same thing with Hong Kong, right? So people just, I don't know. People need to start figuring stuff out. I think it's silly. If you know that you're in somebody else's backyard and you just set up shop, that's what people go to war for. That's what countries go to war for. It's like, why do these idiots have, just basically sticking each other with knives, and smiling in each other's faces? Oh man, politics. I love it. I love it. Hey, are we ever going to touch on Reagan again? Is she in the near future?
Well, we could actually, since oh my God. Yeah, you told me about that. That is a very tempting article to add. I mean, hold on a second. We are at what for time here tonight?
Hour and 41 minutes.
Well, I mean, if you want to, we can add her in. Since this is your topic, I will let you go first on it. But I mean, I pretty much talked myself out with the addendum. But I mean, this piece of information that you revealed is yet another, another hit. I mean, like the Australian government has got some serious egg on its face because of what Reagan did, and as again, right, like and of course, Raygun, instead of like realizing that the jig was up and that she'd managed to get away with a big con, she chose to double down. And when she chose to double down, right, more investigative journalists started looking. And when they started looking, they started finding stuff. But you know what? I will let V comment about this, and this will be the last topic of the night. So V, introduce your new information about Raygun, and I will comment on it, and that will be the end of the show tonight.
Well, I wouldn't say, well, it's not new information, but it's something that's going around. So there had been a protest. There were people signing petitions to have this ray gun investigated. Now, these investigations were supposed to upturn the accusation of, well, she manipulated the Olympic qualifications, set up her own committee that actually denied grants to underprivileged performers and having her husband coach the team on top of it. Now, this is, again, the accusations. So this is hearsay. This is alleged at this point. So, but there have been statements that have rolled out, actually, stating no foul play was done. So, and these were addressed by several different adjacent entities having to do with the Olympics. There's multiple types of committees and governing bodies. So as far as what's made official, she's in the clear, what it looks like. But I don't know. We'll have to see.
Okay, well, for me personally, I mean, I pretty much talked myself out. Yeah, there had been some very fishy stuff around the qualifications. Like, for instance, there is absolutely no way that she was the most talented break dancer in Australia. Like, none. And it became very obvious when she got to the Olympics that she was like, it's like, I mean, I had somebody on Odyssey like literally try to defend her. Well, she's trying to make a statement. Yeah, well, the statement is that breakdancing doesn't deserve to be a sport, and it's not going to be a sport in LA in 4 years' time because she killed it, right? And she killed it for her own self-aggrandizement. And the thing that really gets to me about this is that there were numerous failures at the 2024 games that the LA Olympic Committee in Los Angeles had better be paying attention to and making clear and definitive efforts to avoid making the same mistakes. Like, feed your athletes properly. For the love of God, you're in Southern California. The facilities that the athletes are staying in need to be fucking air conditioned, right? No, unless you have a fuel system that works out completely well, is completely functional by the time the games start, just get some fucking gas-powered buses and drive the athletes around, right? Like, I mean, LA's in a position to where LA was the last Olympics that actually made a profit. And the reason why they made a profit is because they took advantage of existing facilities. Hopefully, LA is able to do that again.
Well,
but
she also made a TikTok video. I think it was a TikTok, whatever, Instagram, whatever. I'm not sure. But Oh my God, she made this video, and I'm just gonna paraphrase. It's like, you know, I am.
Cringe-orama, cringe-a-rooney,
It's just like
cringe-o.
I am me. I am accredited. I am. I brought joy to the world, and in return, in payment, I got hate. And it's like, oh my God. She most definitely brought joy to the world. And
Yeah, well, I mean,
as far as
if
the
people
shade,
laughing.
well, as far as the hate, man, I mean, listen, the hate is deserved, and I will tell you why. I'm sorry. I gotta adjust myself here. Uh, I, she deserves hate, and because nobody can see this. And see, I'm a man of the mind. I'm Vintok, the mind flayer. All right. I know exactly what her game was. She thought she was going to Elvis breakdancing. She thought that she was going to come through, revolutionize it, and everyone was supposed to love it, and she would be the permanent keynote of breakdancing, effectively erasing the history of everybody before her. Just like with Elvis, you know,
Delusions
black,
of
black people
grandeur.
came. Well, black people came up with rock and roll. Okay, that's a fact. It's a fact. It's a fact. Bluegrass, country music, it's a fact. Okay, Europeans were listening to, contemporary Beethoven. That was poor black folks' music. Okay, with the little 3-string guitar. People understand where rock and roll came from. But you bring up Elvis, king of rock and roll. So I do believe that was her tactic, and I'm glad it blew up in her face.
Count me in there. Oh my God. Just like absolute narcissist, self-absorbed delusions of grandeur. Like basically she's got all of the hallmarks of narcissistic personality disorder, and she's got Baizhu disorder to boot. And that's not a very good. And she came from probably a fairly well-off family, and she's got a university education. That is not a good combination.
I couldn't have said that better myself.
Well, I mean, it's like the way she's acting and the way she's reacting to this is the way a narcissist would react. And it was all about her. It wasn't about anybody else. She didn't care that she was taking away potential Olympic opportunities away from people in the future. It was all about her, and she was going to revolutionize the sport, and she ended up instead destroying it.
Yeah, epic fail.
An epic fail. And she manipulated a whole bunch of circumstances to even get to the Olympics in the first place. This is not even Eddie the Eagle. Eddie the Eagle, he knew he wasn't going to do well. I'm talking about Eddie the Eagle at the 88 Olympics. Eddie the Eagle knew that he was not going to do well at the Olympics. He knew he was going to finish dead last. But he went there because he wanted to demonstrate that the Olympics were not about, well, it was higher, faster, stronger, but it was also about the ability of the common people to participate in the games, and that's exactly what it did. Same thing with the Jamaican bobsled team, although the Jamaican bobsled team actually ended up doing pretty well for themselves out of it. They're
so well they made a movie about it.
Oh wow, yeah! They actually took it seriously, and
Cool Runnings.
Cool Runnings, yeah. Well, here was the ironic part about it. My understanding is that what ended up happening is that they had these two Olympic sprinters ended up tripping up over each other at the Olympic qualifiers, even though they were good enough to make the team. But because of the way the rules were set up, they weren't allowed to go. And there was no guarantee that they were going to be still world-class sprinters. But because Jamaica's got a very deep track team.
Oh, yeah.
Jamaica's got an incredibly deep track team. And there's not a guarantee that they would still be at the top of their peak in 4 years' time. So they thought, okay, instead of going to the Olympics, let's try the Winter Olympics. And it was actually, and at first it was a joke, but then it ended up not being a joke, right? And it was like, yeah, no, the reason why they ended up doing way better than people were, well, first of all, they took it seriously, but they actually got actual athletes, like sprinters, on their team, right? Like they had world-class sprinters from the sprint program on that 4-man team. That's the reason why they ended up doing way better than anybody was expecting, right? You know, this is no Eddie the Eagle. This is not a Jamaican bobsled team. This is one person doing this for their own self-aggrandizement. And I mean, quite frankly, based on her reactions and her attitude and everything else that happened before she even got to the Olympics, her going down in flames is a wonderful thing to see. And unless we're done with that, I think we're going to call it a night here.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, tlbtalk.com. Be there, be square.
All right, man. That's it for tonight. I will see you on Sunday. All right. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.